It was supposed to be a memorable road trip with my friends, a journey through scenic landscapes filled with laughter and adventure. Little did we know, our trip would take an unexpected and terrifying turn into the heart of darkness. We set out early in the morning, the open road stretching before us like a promise of freedom. Our destination was a remote cabin nestled deep within the woods, a place where we could disconnect from the world and enjoy a weekend of tranquility. As we drove deeper into the wilderness, the GPS guiding us along winding roads, we began to notice something odd: the lack of other vehicles. It was as if we were the only ones on the road, and an eerie silence had settled over the landscape. Our GPS suddenly glitched, displaying a message we couldn't decipher, a jumble of letters and numbers that made no sense. We pulled over to check the map, and that's when we saw it: an old weathered sign pointing down a narrow, overgrown path that read "Shortcut to Paradise Cabin." Curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to take the shortcut, thinking it would lead us to our destination faster. Little did we know, it would take us to a place we could never have imagined. The path grew narrower and more treacherous with each mile, and the once beautiful scenery now felt oppressive. Tall, gnarled trees loomed overhead, casting ominous shadows that seemed to reach out for us. As we drove further, we realized we had lost all cell phone signal. Panic set in, but we couldn't turn back. We were already deep into the woods. The path seemed to stretch on endlessly, with no signs of civilization in sight. Suddenly, we came upon a dilapidated and abandoned cabin, its windows shattered, and its walls covered in eerie symbols. It was as if it had been the site of some dark ritual. We decided to investigate, thinking we might find clues or someone who could help us. The cabin's interior was a nightmare, a scene of chaos and decay. Strange symbols were scrawled on the walls, and the air was heavy with an unnatural stillness. We heard faint whispers, as if voices from the past were trying to communicate with us. We fled the cabin in terror, jumping back into our car and speeding down the path, desperate to escape the nightmare that had engulfed us. But the path seemed to stretch on forever, the woods closing in around us like a malevolent force. Hours turned into days, and we grew weary and disoriented. We began to question if we had entered another dimension or stumbled upon a cursed place. The forest seemed to taunt us, the path twisting and turning in impossible ways. Finally, when we had all but given up hope, we emerged from the woods, battered and exhausted. It was as if we had returned from another world. We never found our way to the cabin, and to this day, we can't explain the strange and terrifying detour that had taken us into the heart of darkness. A road trip horror story that still haunts our nightmares. Our road trip had been a journey of dreams, the open road stretching out before us like a promise of adventure. We had visited iconic landmarks, laughed at inside jokes, and created memories that would last a lifetime. But it was the night we stumbled upon the desolate motel that would turn our road trip into a harrowing nightmare. We had been driving through a remote stretch of desert highway, our car's headlights cutting through the inky darkness. The GPS displayed a single option for lodging, a place called the Desert Oasis Motel. With fatigue gnawing at us, we decided to take a chance and pulled into the motel's gravel lot. The Desert Oasis Motel was a relic from another era, its neon sign flickering with a ghostly glow. We were greeted by a grizzled motel manager, his eyes heavy with weariness, who checked us into a room that seemed frozen in time. The faded wallpaper, threadbare carpets, and creaky furniture gave the place a haunting charm. As the night wore on, we heard strange noises coming from the neighboring rooms, a mixture of muffled conversations and eerie laughter that sent shivers down our spines. Unease settled in, but exhaustion overcame our fear, and we fell into an uneasy sleep. It was the sound of a blood-curdling scream that jolted us awake in the dead of night. We rushed out into the dimly lit corridor, only to find it empty, our fellow guests' rooms dark and silent. We approached the manager's office, pounding on the door, but there was no response. Panicked, We decided to leave the motel, but as we reached the exit, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. We were trapped, the motel seemingly alive with malevolent intent. The walls seemed to close in on us, the corridors twisting and turning in impossible ways. Shadows danced in the corners of our vision, and the air grew icy cold. We could hear faint whispers, as if the very walls were conspiring against us. In a desperate bid to escape, we made our way to the lobby, where we discovered an old guest book filled with names and dates. As we flipped through the pages, we realized that the entries dated back decades, with names that seemed eerily familiar. The motel itself seemed to feed on our fear, manifesting our deepest nightmares. It was as if we had stepped into a surreal, nightmarish dimension, where time had no meaning. Hours turned into days, and we lost all sense of reality. We were haunted by ghostly apparitions and tormented by the echoes of our own fears. The motel became a labyrinth of horror, with no way out. Just when we had resigned ourselves to our fate, the motel began to unravel, its walls shifting and warping until they faded away like a mirage. We found ourselves standing on the empty desert highway, the motel vanishing into thin air. We sped away, our hearts pounding, vowing never to speak of our nightmarish encounter. The Desert Oasis Motel had been a place of unspeakable terror, a nightmarish twist in our once idyllic road trip. It was a journey we would never forget, a road trip horror story that had left us forever changed. Our road trip along the historic Route 66 had been a dream come true. The endless highway, dotted with nostalgic diners and quirky attractions, had filled our days with adventure and laughter. But as the sun dipped below the horizon one fateful evening, we found ourselves on a desolate stretch of road that would turn our journey into a terrifying road trip horror story. We had been driving for hours, the car's tires humming on the worn asphalt. The GPS showed no signs of nearby towns or rest stops, and our fuel gauge hovered dangerously close to empty. Panic set in as the realization dawned that we might be stranded in the middle of nowhere. Just as desperation began to creep in, we spotted a solitary gas station on the horizon, its neon sign flickering like a beacon of hope. We pulled into the station, the ancient pumps creaking to life, as if awakened from a long slumber. The station's lone attendant, an elderly man with a weathered face, approached us with an unsettling grin. He offered to fill our tank but warned us that we were in for a long night. He spoke of a ghostly legend that plagued the desolate stretch of Route 66 we were traveling, an eerie tale of a vengeful spirit known as the Highway Haunter. The story went that the Highway Haunter was a hitchhiker who had met a tragic end on this very road. In death, he had become a malevolent entity, luring unsuspecting travelers to their doom. As the attendant spoke, we dismissed his words as local superstition. With a full tank of gas, we set out into the night, our laughter echoing through the car's cabin. But as the miles passed, an oppressive silence descended. The atmosphere grew thick with tension, and unease settled in. That's when we saw him. A solitary figure on the side of the road, his thumb extended in a silent plea for a ride. The hitchhiker's face was obscured by the shadows, but we could see that he wore clothing from a bygone era. Against our better judgment, we decided to stop. The hitchhiker climbed into the back seat, and a chill swept through the car as he muttered cryptic phrases under his breath. We asked him about his destination, but he remained eerily silent, his gaze fixed on the rearview mirror. As the minutes turned into hours, our anxiety grew. The hitchhiker's presence was suffocating, and the car's interior grew frigid. We watched in horror as his form began to fade, like smoke dissipating into the night. Panicked, we slammed on the brakes and watched as the hitchhiker vanished completely. The realization struck us: the Highway Haunter had chosen us as his next victims. With trembling hands, we reversed the car and sped away, our hearts pounding with fear. The road stretched on endlessly, the night filled with ominous whispers and ghostly apparitions. It was a night of terror we would never forget, a journey along Route 66 that had taken a chilling turn into the supernatural, a road trip horror story that would haunt our nightmares for years to come.